And you're tuned to KXLU Los Angeles. The program is Center Stage every Tuesday night. We talk about film, and tonight we're going to look at a film called Metallica, Some Kind of Monster. It's a documentary about the band Metallica. And joining us, we have the filmmakers here. We have Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky. And thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here.
Nice to be here.
I found the film very captivating. It really gives us an inside look of what it must have been like to be with the band during this session. Now, how did you guys come up with the concept of a film about Metallica?
Well, I wish we could say that we were so brilliant that we came up with this great concept.
But you are brilliant.
I'd rather say that the concept came up with us. I mean, basically, we were friendly with Metallica and always fascinated by these guys because they gave us music for free for our film Paradise Lost in 1996, which was about three teenage, the prosecutor felt three teenage killers who were accused of these devil-worshipping murders of three 8-year-old boys. The point of view of the film is that these kids were innocent and rounded up simply because they wore black T-shirts and, God forbid, listened to Metallica. And Metallica, when we contacted them about using music in that film, were incredibly cool. And we had our own stereotype about Metallica when we sought them out for the music, and we were embarrassed at that stereotype when we met them, and they were so gracious about giving us the music, and started a fascination for Bruce and I about the onstage persona being so different from who they were as real people. So we always carried that with us, and over the years talked to them about doing some project, whether it was promotional or something, and eventually that landed us in a room with them while they were undergoing group therapy. But that started really as just Elektra's desire, their record label's desire for us to get a little behind-the-scenes footage. And boom, as soon as we started filming, the band started disintegrating in front of our cameras, and everyone had the courage to let us keep rolling.
We shot 1,600 hours of footage, 180 shoot days. It was an onslaught, and it seemed like we were there all the time. We were shooting all the time. There was every day was 7 or 8 hours of taping of these guys, and a lot of it in therapy sessions, a lot of great music. But, as you had said before, you didn't particularly like the band, musically yourself. But what's so universal about the story of these guys is that they're four men in crisis. They're four men approaching middle age, four guys who had lost the ability to communicate with each other, share experiences with each other, express feelings for each other, and they were on the verge of collapsing. Jason Newsted left the band after 14 years, and management saw that these guys were not talking to each other at all, and made the very smart move of bringing in a performance enhancement coach / therapist named Phil Toll. And, he was supposed to be there for about 6 weeks, but ended up being there 2.5 years. And we were there to capture all of it.
And one of the problems with filming therapy is, we shot maybe 50 or 60 3, 4, 5-hour sessions. And, each therapy session has its own little dramatic arc to it. If anyone's ever been in therapy, these conversations are very discursive. They move from subject to subject, and it's sort of hard to capture that without boring people to death. And so in the film, the therapy is by nature a little superficial. I think the arc of the film is very deep, but I don't think we had the luxury to go into the intricacies of every therapy session. Toll, is a very interesting character. Without question, he saved the band. I think if it wasn't for Phil Toll and the therapy, there would be no Metallica today. Metallica will tell you that. Their management will tell you that. We would tell you that. We are telling you that. That doesn't mean he's not a complicated figure. We had a complicated relationship with him. There were times we felt we were juggling who actually is the director of the movie here. There were times where he, for good reasons, would try to give us what we thought or what he thought we wanted, and any time it went down that road, we would have to have a talk with him and say, look, don't forget we're here. He also became very attached to the band as he considers himself a performance enhancement coach as opposed to a therapist. And what that means to him is that as a performance enhancement coach, it's okay to become emotionally attached to your subjects, which a traditional therapist would tell you borders on being unethical. He also believes that a performance enhancement coach's job is never done. As long as these guys are performing, they need enhancement. And that became, a problem. The therapist, I think, became a little too attached to his subjects, which in a funny way is what they needed, because these are guys who were so emotionally shut down. I mean, they've been famous since they were 17, famous, rich, and adored since they were 17, and that has an effect on you. I mean, and in a particular branch of music where showing your feelings is like verboten. And so this kind of overly emotional, paternalistic approach that Phil took might have backfired on other kinds of people, but these guys really needed it. But that was also his Achilles heel, because he became so emotionally enmeshed with these guys that he didn't know when it was time to stop. Giving actually the band a great gift, meaning that he became so enmeshed with these guys, it took the band had to rally around each other and push him away in order for them to heal. And like in any good, relationship where there's an authority figure like parent, child, student, teacher, therapist, patient, the final act of healing is pushing that authority figure away. And it hurt Phil, and it's one of the most uncomfortable scenes in the film, because you really feel like you shouldn't be in the room. I mean, Bruce and I were looking at each other like, we really shouldn't be here, but this is like a great scene. You never want to turn the camera off. You can always figure out how to deal with it later. Structurally, we had a real challenge in making this film, because anyone who's remotely interested in music knows that Metallica did not break up. That Metallica actually in 2003 came out with an album called Saint Anger that did very well, and that they embarked on a world tour, a summer sanitarium tour. So the storytelling challenge was, how do you communicate what they went through and not destroy the dramatic surprise? So instead of pretending that there's drama in what happened, we wanted to start with the present, flash back, and let people see how everything developed by telegraphing the ending, which is dramatically a little more difficult to pull off. In many ways, that structure is a nod to the greatest rock and roll film that was ever made, which was very influential to Bruce and I, which is Gimme Shelter, made by the Maisel brothers, where Bruce and I started our careers. Gimme Shelter starts with Jagger walking into the Maisels' editing room, looking at the killing on the moviola, and then we flash back, and the movie eventually catches up with the killing, and that's our little wink at our all-time favorite movie. You start off in 2003 with the journalist coming in. A light bulb sort of went off in our heads when we actually filmed those interviews. We thought we were just going to film a couple of interviews and have it be part of a montage at the end of the movie of the machine kicking into place. But with every interview, we heard these guys talking about things that we had filmed. It's like, man, we filmed that. Man, we filmed that. And what was so intriguing is, like everything in life, when you look at the simple black and white answers that these guys were giving, when you look at things in retrospect, they're much less complex than the reality actually would show you. And so we were interested in how these guys were reflecting back upon things that they had lived through, because what they had lived through in real life was much more ambiguous than what they were telling the journalists. And so we thought that would be an interesting device to ladle out throughout the film.